Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. It's Monday, October 5th. I'm Stephanie Haney. This is where you get filled in on the top stories on WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Thanks for choosing to be here to get filled in on what's impacting you here in Northeast Ohio. It's been another big weekend, getting caught up from some of the big news from Friday. Also celebrating that today is a Victory Monday after an incredible win for the Cleveland Browns against the Dallas Cowboys. We'll get to that in a minute. The first thing we're going to talk about is the big news that happened between Friday and over the weekend with President Donald Trump testing positive for COVID-19. Of course, also First Lady Melania Trump testing positive for COVID-19. Many people sending their well wishes to the president. Of course, all of the American public hoping for a quick recovery, but a lot of unknown things coming out as we learn more about the treatment of the president. And just this morning, late this morning, we are now learning that White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany is the latest within the president's orbit to test positive for COVID-19. Just learning that this morning. And there's a lot of confusion around President Donald Trump's health. So let's do a quick breakdown of the things that we know, and then we'll talk about some of the things that we don't know. We do know that President Donald Trump tweeted early on Friday morning that both he and the First Lady had tested positive for COVID-19. We also know that he traveled to a private fundraiser after learning that his close aide, Hope Hicks, who had spent a lot of time with him over the past week and traveled with him, was positive for COVID-19. Now, it was actually White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany that said it was determined that it was safe for the president to go to that fundraiser, even though he knew he had been exposed to Hope Hicks, who had tested positive for COVID-19, and that he did socially distance at that fundraiser and also wear a mask, and it was also said to be outdoors. Now we know that the president is hospitalized at Walter Reed Medical Center. We didn't know this at the time. We said we were told that it was a precautionary measure, but that was after he received supplemental oxygen at the White House. And the blood oxygen level is a major indicator when it comes to the state of someone who has been diagnosed with COVID-19. So important information there that we again learned later. We also know that he's been given an experimental antibody cocktail that is being tested in COVID-19 patients by the drug maker Regeneron. Now, this has only been taken by some 200 people in phases 2 and 3 of trials so far, and there was special approval that need to be granted by the FDA in order for the president to take this experimental cocktail. We also know the president is in the middle of a 5-day course of remdesivir. This is another experimental drug that's being used in hospitalized patients and has also been granted emergency authorization by the Food and Drug Administration. And we also know that the president has been given a dose of dexamethasone. This is another drug that is used to control the body's immune response. Now, we know from medical professionals that this is typically given later in the stages of a COVID-19 illness when some patients' immune systems go into overdrive and start actually attacking their vital organs. Guidelines from the World Health Organization recommend that that particular drug only be given to patients with severe and critical COVID-19. And the National Institutes of Health have also issued similar guidance specifying the drug is recommended only for people who require a mechanical ventilator to help them breathe or who need supplemental oxygen. Now, Dr. Sean Conley, who is the doctor assigned to the president, said that the president could be discharged from Walter Reed National Military Medical Center as early as today, but Dr. Conley's briefings have been confusing, and that is to be kind in the characterization of those. He has been making statements and having to clarify or walk them back, causing a lot of confusion about the timeline of the president's treatment. Also painting a very positive picture of President Donald Trump's situation during a press briefing on Saturday. But then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, first on background, but then it was later revealed that it was Mark Meadows who made the statement, said that Trump's vitals were very concerning at a certain point and painting a very different picture of the potential situation that the president is in. And then, of course, there was that photo op on Sunday. So we'll get to that in a second. But here's what we do not know right now about Trump's medical condition. His medical team has continued to be vague with some of the questions there, and they were not clear in specifying the dip in oxygen, which, as we said, is a major factor when it comes to tracking the progress of COVID-19. Also, we don't know exactly where President Donald Trump is in the course of how long he's had COVID-19, the progression of the disease, and also the medical team has been vague about lung scans. So they were specifically asked whether there have been any signs of pneumonia or other damage on the lung scans. And Dr. Conley said that they're tracking all of that, that there are some expected findings, but nothing of any major clinical concern. So some medical professionals weighing in saying that would suggest that there are signs of pneumonia on the lung scans. But again, we are not getting straight answers from that from the president's medical team. Also, some medical experts weighing in about the president actually leaving Walter Reed Medical Center to do sort of a drive-by at the outside of the medical center where supporters had gathered, some criticizing that, saying that if a patient is hospitalized with COVID-19, if a patient is contagious with COVID-19, potentially, again, we don't know what phase the president is at in terms of what day he is in actually having COVID-19, but potentially at one of the most contagious periods. Very questionable, very dangerous potentially for the president to be leaving the hospital and doing that sort of drive-by. Also, people raising red flags about him being in that vehicle with the people who are required to protect him, potentially putting other people at danger of contracting COVID-19. Speaking of people contracting COVID-19, here's what we know within the president's circle, within his orbit, who has tested positive. President Donald Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, Senior Advisor Hope Hicks, Republican National Committee Chairperson Ronna Romney McDaniel, Republican Senator Thom Tillis from North Carolina, Republican Senator Mike Lee from Utah, former White House counselor Kellyanne Conway, President Donald Trump's campaign manager Bill Stapien, Republican Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who has also been hospitalized, Notre Dame President Reverend John Jenkins, Trump's personal assistant Nick Luna, and of course this morning we're now learning that White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany has now also tested positive for COVID-19. Now, many of those people were at the announcement of President Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett. That was last Saturday, September 26th. But also, many of those people were at the final prep meeting for that first presidential debate that happened here in Cleveland last Tuesday. So that was a week ago, Monday night. The people who were there, of course, were the president, Hope Hicks, Bill Stapien, Governor Christie, and Kellyanne Conway. Christie said that no one wore masks during that debate prep, and he also said that he had tested negative for COVID-19 on Tuesday, but would get retested after the president's diagnosis became public on Friday, and then he did test positive. So here's another thing that medical professionals are saying that is something that maybe hasn't been highlighted. It can take a couple days for a COVID-19 positive test to come about after you have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. So medical professionals are now stressing something that maybe hasn't been stressed so much in the past. A negative COVID-19 test after you've been exposed to someone with COVID-19, according to these medical professionals, does not mean that you do not need to quarantine. You do still need to quarantine because during that incubation period, you may not test positive for COVID-19. That's something that really needs to be hammered home at this point when we look at how to stop this from spreading even further. Now, Republican Senator and Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is now delaying the Senate's return to the floor to now October 19th, but he has said that hearings will continue. He does still expect hearings to continue for the nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett. Now, that'll be interesting to see how that works because two of those Republicans that are on the Senate Judiciary Committee are now positive for COVID-19 and will be required to quarantine. Now, the Senate Judiciary Committee is made up of 12 Republicans and 10 Democrats. So without those two Republicans there, that creates not only an even split in the votes, which would be required in order to move Judge Amy Coney Barrett out of committee into a floor vote for the nomination for potential appointment to the Supreme Court, but also if any of those Democrats show up, they won't have what's called a quorum. So they won't have enough people to even bring it to a vote in committee to bring her nomination to the full Senate floor. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. We do know that today McConnell is hoping to postpone Senate floor activities, but again, not committee activities until October 19th. So definitely lots to follow there. We will keep you up to date as we know more, as we continue to know more, seemingly every single moment related to how this situation is developing. Here's a heads up for you. With so much going on, it's very important to know that today is the last day to register to vote in Ohio if you want to be able to vote in the November 3rd presidential election. So you can do that at your County Board of Elections office. You can also do it online. I've tweeted out that link, so you can find that at _Stephanie Haney. Check with your family, check with your friends, check with your followers on this beautiful internet that we have, and see if the people in your life are registered to vote. Today, again, is the last day to do it if you want to be able to vote in the November 3rd presidential election, which is just over 4 weeks away, coming up very, very quickly here. Now, also related to voting here in Ohio, on Friday, a court ruled that Secretary of State Frank LaRose actually has the discretion to allow multiple ballot drop boxes per county. He doesn't have to allow them, but he's not prohibited from allowing them, which is something that our Ohio Secretary of State had previously said was his interpretation of the Ohio law. Well, an appeals court on Friday, the 10th District Court of Appeals here in Ohio, said that that's not an accurate interpretation, that he doesn't have to allow multiple drop boxes, but he can certainly allow multiple drop boxes. So Secretary of State Frank LaRose issued a new directive, which from a practical standpoint, to be honest, doesn't really do anything in terms of voter access to ballot drop boxes if you are hoping to vote by mail and you're not mailing that absentee ballot in. He says that every Ohio County Board of Election can now have more than one drop box at the site of the Board of Elections. So there can be two in the same place, or there can be more than two, but basically in the same place. And he also said that the board can have bipartisan election officials, so at least one Republican, at least one Democrat, outside of the county boards of elections office to accept absentee ballots. But again, this is all happening at the county board of elections office. And the reason that this controversy all even came up is because Cuyahoga County had a plan to add additional drop boxes. Cuyahoga County wanted to have at 6 library branches, they wanted to have ballot drop boxes in order to give people more access to drop off their absentee ballots if they choose to vote that way. So multiple drop boxes are allowed, yes, but they have to be at the same place. So from a practical standpoint, you really have to ask, does that really increase voter access? That's the question. Now, as a reminder, early in-person voting starts tomorrow, Tuesday, October 6th. So here's something that's important to know as well here in the state of Ohio. If you have already requested a absentee ballot, which will be mailed to you, and you can either return by the mail or drop off in person or drop in one of those drop boxes. If you've already requested that and you change your mind and you decide you want to vote in person, you need to take that ballot that you receive in the mail and you can go to early in-person voting at your county board of elections. Then you'll be able to cancel the mail-in ballot and you'll be able to vote regular ballot, no issues there. If you wait until election day and you take that mail-in ballot with you, you'll be voting what is called as a provisional voter. So that means that that's one of the ballots that will be counted last, and they will have to make sure and then later verify at that time that you didn't also vote by mail. So extra steps involved. You can still do it, but definitely extra steps involved. So if you've requested a ballot by mail and you change your mind, the best bet is to vote early and take that ballot with you so that they can cancel your mail-in ballot right there on the spot and you get your ballot cast. All right, now let's turn to the great news that we are now celebrating a Victory Monday. The Cleveland Browns definitely gave us a performance to remember yesterday on Sunday with the final score of 49-38 over the Dallas Cowboys in Texas. And they now have a record of 3-1. That's 3 wins and 1 loss to start the season for the first time in 19 years. Now, we have our new column coming out every week from Jay Crawford where he breaks down the game and gives you his take on it. Jay says that this was one for the ages, and this was definitely one to give Browns fans a heart attack as well. It was a math equation from the start to the finish. You know, we've talked about this in the past, how in the middle of the game, I'll do what's called Browns math, where I'm normally trying to figure out how we can possibly score enough points to win the game. Well, this time, what we were doing was Browns math and trying to figure out if there was any way that we could possibly lose the game. So either way, we're still doing our Browns math. Jay talked about when the Browns kicked that field goal in the third quarter, everybody doing their math in the head to figure out what could possibly happen for us to lose the game after that, especially when we got to the fourth quarter. Now, remember, things were looking really good in the third quarter, and then we got to the fourth quarter, and that's when things started to get a little bit dicey. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute. But Jay said that the Browns made big plays when they needed them most, and it was the opposition serving up the assist, aka the Dallas Cowboys, and it was a nice change. You need to check out his column on WKYC.com and read his take on it. Jay is right. He says there's no experience in the world like being a Browns fan, and that is definitely the truth. Our 3 News sports analyst Ben Axelrod broke down that game-clinching touchdown run from Odell Beckham Jr. that really finally gave us a moment where we could breathe as Browns fans. Just a little bit. You know, you still get nervous, right? But this was with 3:42 left in the fourth quarter after that strange kicking choice from Dallas that gave the Browns back possession of the ball at the 50-yard line, trying to fend off what was looking like it really could have been a typical scenario that we have seen a lot. Now, remember, in the third quarter, the Browns led the Cowboys 41-14, and things were looking pretty good. But then in the fourth quarter, the Cowboys scored 24 points and looked like we were about to squander a 27-point second half lead. But one play later, the Browns were back in the end zone with star wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. on a 50-yard run. And then after that, this was an interesting moment. There was that point after touchdown attempt, right? Well, the Cowboys managed to block it. The Browns recovered it, ran it into the end zone, and then for a minute there, it looked like nobody knew exactly what that meant. But we ended up getting the 2-point conversion on that, and the rest is history. We had ourselves a very nice end to our Sunday. Again, making the Browns start the season 3-1, which was great to see. Very excited for that. We do have an update for you on the Cleveland International Film Festival that we want to talk about for 2021. As we do talk about the precautions and the safety that are required in order to stop the spread and exposure of COVID-19, the 2021 Cleveland International Film Festival has decided that it will go virtually. They're making that call right now. So the film festival will run from April 7th to April 20th. The lineup will come out in March, and they are keeping with the virtual style. So that's what they did in 2020 for the final event, which was supposed to be held at Tower City Cinemas for the last time before they moved to Playhouse Square, which is the new home. Well, that new home will now come to be in spring of 2022 because they've decided, yes, they will stay virtual for next year, really getting ahead of it to get the planning in place now. So that's what we can expect from them. Now, here's what we would love from you. It is Victory Monday, as we've said, and we want to know how you're celebrating Victory Monday. Again, this is pretty nice, having these multiple Victory Mondays. We had a Victory Friday, our second Victory Monday this season. Hopefully we get lots more of them. We want to know what you're doing to celebrate. You can text us your pictures at 216-344-3300, or you can send us a photo or a video in the WKYC app. So just open up the WKYC app, and then you'll just scroll and you'll see an orange bar. How appropriate is that? That'll be asking for your photos and your videos celebrating Victory Monday. Now, here's what I will ask you. This is very important. If you do send us a photo or a video, tell us a little bit about it. Tell us your name and also where you're from, and give us either a phone number or an email address so that we can reach out to you and let you know that we plan to use your photo or your video either online or in one of our shows, potentially in the 5 o'clock What's New show. We'll be seeing some of those throughout the show today, I'm sure, possibly in the Trending Stories segment and Clicking in Cleveland, which is the segment that I run on the 5 o'clock show. So please let us know your name, your phone number, your email, whatever it is, how we can get a hold of you so that we can let you know if we're going to use your photo or your video. Also, if you are listening to this as a podcast, thank you very much. If you didn't know, 3 News Now with Stephanie Haney is now available as a podcast on your favorite podcast provider platform. Just search for 3 News Now with Stephanie Haney. 3 News is one word, and it is the number 3, not spelled out. and it'll come up and you can subscribe. And also please rate and review the show. Would love to know what you're thinking about it. And also send me a DM. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at _Stephanie Haney. Always love hearing from you all and letting me know what you're thinking, what you're interested in, whatever. Let's just have a conversation. That's it for your 3 News Now early update for Monday, October 5th. I'll be back here just after 3 p.m. as soon as we get those new numbers in from the Ohio Department of Health related to COVID-19 here in Ohio and the rest of the stories that are topping WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Everyone enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Stay safe and be well, and I'll see you back here shortly. I'm Stephanie Haney.